Pro Playmakers, these are the skills that separate. Welcome to the Pro Playmakers video blog number 9. This is risk management for defensemen. So it sounds like a pretty simple concept of being able to manage risk, but it's really not. A lot of defensemen, even your conservative defensemen, have a lot of risk management issues. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the important parts of risk management and how, as a defenseman, you can become much more effective and much more efficient. So we're going to start off with what's pretty much the most important thing, which is understanding the dots and how the dots impact your play. So basically all this space here on the inside, this inside corridor, this is where you want to defend from. And you want to deflect all the play towards the outside, which, you know, every coach has talked about that, but you'd be surprised at the number of defensemen who get themselves caught outside the dots and giving up space towards the middle. So number one principle is always defensive side positioning as a D. It's very important that you do that. And having good inside position and forcing and deflecting plays towards the outside. Now, keeping defensive side positioning at the forefront, and it is really the most important thing. I want to talk to you a bit about one of my pet peeves for most, if not all, defensemen, and that's their approach to an attack coming from the corner. So let's say you got an attacker here from the corner, and we have this defenseman here whose job is to now pressure this particular defenseman. What's important is how you approach. So this guy here, what typically happens to him is he goes rushing in. When you go rushing in straight lines, what happens is that you put yourself at risk, that you give the defender or the attacker two ways to go. And that puts yourself at risk. So if this attacker, he slides up the wall and he's smart and he faces up to square. Once he squares to you and you attack him straight on, one little head fake one way, and he gets you to turn your skates, and he's going the opposite way. That is putting yourself at risk. It's what you really want to do is you want to take away options. So your first priority would be to take one of these two options away and force the attacker to go in the direction that you want him to go. So in this situation, this defender has chosen to go low and force the play up high. So he's trying to get here, get inside, get his position. So he uses his stick here, force him. Then once he gets up, he uses his stick here, and he continues to force the guy into his only option, which is up here. That is managing risk. As opposed to going straight at him, giving him two options, you tell him the space that's available. As a defenseman, the best way you can manage risk is by forcing the attacker to go where you want him to go. You control the space that's afforded to him. So take control of that and force him the way you want him to go. Let's talk about risk management when defending the rush. Now, when I talk about defending the rush to our guys, what we talk about exclusively is getting up the ice. So where the problem starts for the most part for defensemen is what they do when they don't have the puck offensively. So let's say this defenseman comes around the net, he makes an outlet pass to this forward, the forward is now moving up the ice. This D now is taking his time. When he takes his time, as the play gets up, right now, as he's moving up here, that gap is too big. So let's say this guy gets here and he turns the puck over. Well, now this guy's way back here, so now the play gets turned back. When the play gets turned back, he now doesn't get outside the blue line, and now he's afforded himself this kind of gap for this attacker. And that's really a big, huge problem that most defensemen run into, is they don't get up the ice fast enough. They don't follow the play fast enough. So your best way to defend the gap and your best way to improve the gap on defensemen is what they do without the puck offensively, because that will improve the positioning that they're in when they need to actually defend. So now that you've understand the gap and how to close the gap and using the transition game to best manage your risk, what you would do is as the defenseman is following the play, again, he follows the play, he's conscious of the dots, because once a play turns over, his job is to fold to the middle. And you see this happen with a lot of D. They'll fold to the outside and then have to come back towards the middle. It's always better to go from outside in. And now you've established position. You got a good gap here that you can now defend as the play comes across the offensive blue line. And that's really important. Now you've established inside position, and you try to make the blue line more of an obstacle. But you've done that because of your gap. And the better gap that you play, the less risk that you're exposed to. Especially if you can establish inside position, because even if this guy beats you to the outside, your job then is just to make him have to take the corner late. Now that he's taken the corner late, you put him at a bad angle for a shot, or you force him to come all the way across the front of the net. That's a great way of managing your risk. So you've closed the gap here, you've given up some space behind you, but the forward, as he comes around, you just continue to force him to the worst possible angle to establish to defend your own net.